don't even have affordable childcare in this freaking country. Okay, and the people who fight against those kinds of laws are Republicans.
And yet...
What do you want them to do with their kids when they have to go to work? What do you want them to do? What do you want them to do? I want them to answer that freaking question. Answer the question. Journalists, ask them the question.
I've watched this before the show. I already lost what her argument was. I heard childcare, and I forget. Did you hear what else she said?
Yeah, you got me. I don't remember.
And I've listened to this twice now in preparation for the show. I already forgot what she said other than childcare. I'm actually going to have to go back because she is screaming and having such a visceral, vein popping out of the neck reaction to this. I cannot even follow the reasoning she's using to do such a thing. Here we go again.
Leave. We don't even have affordable childcare in this freaking country.
Okay,
and the people who fight against those kinds of laws are Republicans.
And yet...
What do you want them to do with their kids when they have to go to work? What do you want them to do? What do you want them to do? I want them to answer that freaking question. Answer the question. Journalists, ask them the question. Ask them. Ask them.
Isn't it amazing?
Ask them the goddamn question.
She almost threw her phone there. I love, like, you know, the argument men and women are exactly the same. Look at him saying completely... Look at Chank just saying completely sound in this and trying to get a word in edgewise while she's literally screaming to the point that her carotid artery or jugular is going to pop out of her neck.
Isn't it amazing that not one Democrat has shown 1% of the passion that Anna has today?
They don't care. They're
don't
fine.
care.
They're
they don't
fine.
care.
They're all so old, they don't even have to worry about it affecting them. And if they're young enough where it would affect them, they'll get their abortion.
They're going to fly to
They're
Paris.
trading individual stocks, enriching themselves. They're good. They're good. They don't care about you. Make sure you understand that and you feel it in your bones. They don't care about you at all. All of that fundraising, all of that canvassing, all of that hard work on the ground, they can't even get a voting rights bill passed. They're losers.
Trusha Briggs writes in, thank you, Anna.
Whew. You know, all the arguments aside, sometimes in life, things do not go your way. And this is so often the case, specifically in politics. And this reaction that I'm watching right now is as if she's never had something not go her way in her life. Like she's never seen something that she disagrees with come to fruition before in her life. Oh my gosh. It's like it's the first time she's feeling this emotion of, I didn't get my way. Unbelievable. Take a moment. Even if you feel this way, there are so many issues in this life that I feel the exact same way about internally. But before we go on a show, specifically where you're meant to be a role model for discussing these issues, and she has been very measured and had a very good temperament in all the other videos, for the most part, that I've seen her in the debates that she's done, this is not a strong point for you. And unfortunately, a lot of times we are viewed by our weakest moments, and you're allowing that to just be what you do on TV in front of all the people who are watching you. But there was things said in the haze of this, some things that I agree with, that guess what, your politicians up there, regardless of what side of the issue they represent, they don't care. Either wherever this goes, they're winning, guys. It doesn't matter. And she mentioned insider trading and how they're just lining their pockets with all the decisions that they make and all the regulations they push forth. Absolutely. Brilliant point. Would have been a lot more brilliant if you sat there and said, hey guys, they don't care about you. They're lining their pockets and I just wanted to let you know. Instead, you just screamed at me for a minute and a half. And this is exactly a representation of this like lefty scream about everything. And I'm sure there are conservatives who do this too. But when we see that, we'll talk about it as well. But not to this extent. It's really unbelievable. Affordable childcare. Certainly a discussion that we should be having if we are moving towards the realm of not allowing abortions in certain states. I imagine if you don't allow it, guess what? There's going to be an influx of children, and those children are going to need childcare. And we would hope that as a nation or as a state, that childcare would be affordable and that we would do things and work to make that the case and make that the reality. You could have said that in an inside voice. And we could add that discussion in an inside voice.
Yeah, and like there's a place for passion in politics, but I see this pattern repeating itself where it's like, here's a issue that we feel passionate about or an injustice in the world, and then you rush to make this legislation and like we should pass a law to fix this issue, and then the next thing you know, that's how we got like an insolvent social security system and a welfare state and inflation up to wazoo right now because we just have to urgently help people, and it's like sometimes your passion needs to be reeled in, and then you have to think through the consequences of the legislation that you're pushing so passionately for and see what's going to happen, because a lot of times you end up passing things that create a bigger mess than the original issue at hand, when if you would have just approached it in a more measured fashion and drawn from history and done the analysis and done the math and see, okay, what is the ways that we can actually reasonably solve this and not create bigger problems for ourselves or not bankrupt our country or cause skyrocketing inflation or burden our future generations with debt. Or destroy the black nuclear family, then let's talk about these policies and think through them and adhere to the first print and figure out a way to administer them in a way that doesn't violate first principles or just wisdom and temperance in the first place.
Right. If you are passionate, let's talk across the aisle. If you are that's what passion is, and that is one of the things that I've noticed, particularly about people who are on the progressive left and support these sorts of policies. Screaming is mistaken for passion. Screaming is not passion. Screaming is screaming. Screaming is having a mental breakdown. Screaming is throwing a tantrum. That is not passion. And you might be fooled into thinking that it is. And it is a brilliant tool to fool somebody into thinking, oh, well, this means a lot and you must be right because you're screaming it at me in a way that I can't hear or think about anything else. So you must be passionate about that. And therefore, you must be right. It doesn't work. The most wonderful thing would have been, I think, for her to get on the show and go, guys, this happened. This is very upsetting to me. Upsetting to me in a way that makes me want to scream. But I am not going to scream. And in fact, I'm going to talk about why I think this is wrong. I want to talk to people who disagree with me about why I think this is wrong. And here's the list of all the things that I think we should do and that we should account for before we make a decision of this magnitude. That would have worked for me. I would have been like, okay, good for Anna Kasparian. I'm so glad that she was measured where other people are not. But unfortunately, that is not what we got. And we should all think about that in our political discourse, because I have moments in my life where I want to be very emotional, and sometimes I am, particularly in personal conversations about some of these issues. And I have to go, oh, okay, why did I have such a crazy reaction to that? Why was my reaction so defensive, so out there, so mental breakdown-y? And I have to go, okay, there's a reason. There's a reason that you have these reactions. Take care of them.
And a good principle in life is the more emotional something makes you, the more you should second guess the way that you're thinking about them, and the more you should double, triple check for blind spots, and the more you should argue with people or wait till you're simmered down and talk with people who might see things differently from you so that you can find your blind spots, because it's much more difficult to find them when you're so inflamed with passion. The passion has a tendency to make you zero in on the one thing and the one thing that you're outraged about, and you miss all of the other collateral damage that you could be causing by acting rashly.
I had that exact, so I won't go into the stories about this personal story, but I had an exact moment that's very similar to this last night in a personal conversation that I was having, where I just immediately jumped and was like, no, I'm defensive about this. No. And you have to, it's hard to recognize those moments. Unfortunately, I'm fortunate that moment does not play out live when you guys are watching and it's all over social media and people get to see it, which is not something that Anna Kasparian has in this situation. But you have to dial it back at some point, and you have to go, why? Why did I do that? Because there's always a reason why you did it.